My name is Jerry Clubb, and I'm a professional engineer, electrical engineer, and I spent 48 years in government service, and 46 of it was with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration of various titles. And when anybody asks me what kind of engineer I am, I always tell them, a damn good one. I grew up on a farm in southeast Missouri, and when my dad wanted me to be an engineer, so I went to engineering school. And when I was in college, the draft was going on and I had to accept a deferment to finish college. And I had a colleague in high school that had been drafted, and he told me, he said, "You're going to get drafted when you get out of college, and if they ask you when you are processing into the Army, if there's any place you'd like to serve, tell them you'd like to come to Redstone Arsenal in Alabama." And when I was processing into the Army, they asked if anyone had a college degree to stand up, and I stood up, and then they asked if anybody had an engineering degree to come over there. And I went over to that group and told them I was an electrical engineer, and they asked me if I had a preference, where did I prefer to go, and I told them Redstone Arsenal, Alabama. And so I went through basic training, and when I got my orders, it said Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. So I said, yeah, that's the Army for you. Well, we started off with basic engineering, electrical engineering, and I just had a degree. And we started off studying Ohm's Law, and I didn't have a whole lot of trouble with it. But one day I was on KP, and the next day they always give you a test on what you had the day before. And I got everything right, and the sergeant said, "You cheated, didn't you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You weren't here yesterday and you made 100 on the test." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "So the guy next to you made 100, so you copied off of his paper?" And I said, "No." And he said, "I'll just give you a new test." So he gave me a new test. I got it all right. And he said, "How do you know this?" And I said, "I graduated just a couple months ago as an electrical engineer." He said, "What the hell are you doing in this class then?" And I said, "It's where the Army sent me," and I graduated that day. And then I got orders to send me to Redstone Arsenal. So I went to the Ordnance Guided Missile School, and I stayed there for probably maybe 6 months, and really wasn't doing anything. And I asked them was there not somewhere where they could use an engineer, and they said, "Go talk to personnel." I went and talked to personnel, and they transferred me to the Army Ballistic Missile Agency. And what I did there, the main job that I did there, and I kind of have mixed emotions about it, but we went to work to see if we could put armament on a helicopter, because there was a lot of advisors in Vietnam at that time. The war hadn't started, but they wanted to see if they could put armor on a helicopter. So I designed a package that would measure what kind of stress was on the helicopter when they fired rockets. And that turned out to be successful. And like I say, I kind of had mixed emotions, because I was making something to kill people, but it was also my duty so we were successful at doing that. When I got out of college, I was interviewed by several people, and one of the things they said, "We have some Department of Defense jobs, and we can get you a deferment so you won't have to serve in the military." And I thought about that. I had a brother that was a Marine, and he went on the second wave of attack boats at Iwo Jima. Had another brother that was killed on a patrol behind enemy lines when they were going across the Rhine River into Germany. And I had an uncle that was wounded in Australia, and had another uncle that was on a ship in Pearl Harbor, and I sat down and I thought, do I want to accept a deferment, or do I want the experience of being in the military? And at that time, the world was pretty calm when there was no war, and I made a decision that I would go ahead and get drafted and serve 2 years in the military. I feel like that's probably an experience that everybody ought to have, and you owe that to the country. Now, I got to be honest, if there'd been a war going on, I don't know if I'd have made the same decision or not. But anyway, that's the best decision that I ever made, because that ultimately resulted in me having an opportunity to work for NASA. When I went to work for NASA, I had a job that was a young engineer's dream. I was getting paid to work on a rocket to go to the moon. When I was in high school, I read once where they transmitted a signal to the moon, bounced it off the moon, and then detected it. And that same article said that someday there'd be a rocket go to the moon, and I thought, I'd love to see such a machine as that, never dreaming that I'd really be working on it. And when I worked at NASA, the Von Braun team they were all the supervisors at Marshall, and they ran the whole program. But we had more work than what they could do, so they gave you your task, and then they left you alone, and they told you, if you need help, you come and ask us, because we'll get you the help, but you've got to solve that job. And they had a technique where they could find out if they could really, if you were really going to be honest or not, and straightforward, and tell them if you got in trouble and what have you. And once they determined that, yeah, that's the kind of engineer you were, they pretty much left you alone. And like I say, I had the ideal job. One of the things I should say, I went to the Missouri School of Mines to get an education, and that's a very good school. And one of the things that I guess the main thing that I learned out of that school was, professor told me, said, when you've got to come up with a new design or you've got to solve a problem, the thing you need to do is you need to thoroughly understand the problem from all aspects before you start thinking about any solution. And he said, let me emphasize that. You make sure you understand all aspects of the problem. Don't start off thinking about what you're going to do about it, or you may reach a conclusion. And he said, so go completely through that, and then put that away and do it completely again. And he said, don't rely on what you did before. You do all the analysis and stuff to come up with what the problem is before. And that's what I did all through my career, and that served me very well. The Department of Metallurgy, they said, if you successfully finish our metallurgy course, you'll be able to tell just by looking at a platinum blonde whether it's virgin metal or common ore. And that was a reputation that they had. Well, the biggest difference between working for NASA and working for a commercial company is, at NASA, they pretty much left you on your own. If you needed help, you went and asked somebody, but mainly whatever you were assigned to do, you did it, and you kept everybody informed of what was going on. And the contractors kept a lot more, they were a lot more strict about knowing what you were doing and where you were headed, what it was going to cost, and what have you. Unfortunately, at NASA, we didn't pay a whole lot of attention to what stuff cost. We were more concerned with it being successful. We were working on Saturn V that was going to go to the moon, and the main idea that almost everyone at Marshall had was, we're going to do what it takes to see that if my system is not going to fail. If something failed, it's not going to be mine. We're going to test it. In fact, Von Braun team had the reputation that they almost wore the hardware out testing it, because Von Braun said, we're going to take all the failures on the bench, not when it flies. One thing that Von Braun, whenever a problem occurred, he didn't go try to find who was guilty. His approach was, okay, we are where we are. How are we going to use the resources that we have to solve this problem? And as opposed to working for the Russians always want to find who's guilty. As far as what I give back to others, I've given lectures, and I go to a lot of meetings where young people are there, and I work with the new engineers and all, and I try to instill upon them that you've got to have the right kind of integrity, and you've got to have the, like I say, the attitude that what I'm building is going to work. And you have to not be afraid or ashamed to admit that you don't know something and you need help. Just go ask for help when you need it. It's a thing that I've tried to instill on all of the young engineers that I work with. And I've worked with a lot of them, and I've consulted with, after I retired from the contractor, well, I was a consultant to NASA. So I worked with a lot of people, and I think a lot of them paid attention to what I told them about the proper way to get the job done. I plan to take it easy. I think I worked for 48 years, but one of the things, I bought a special car in 1964. I got a special ordered vehicle, and I drove it and really liked it till I happened to get married. NASA sent me back to school for a year, and I went back to the Missouri School of Mines, and I met a colleague that I went to high school with, and we ended up getting married. But the car that I had was too high performance for her, so she couldn't drive it. So I parked it in an open air shed, and it sat there for 41 years. And after I retired, I decided that we're going to restore it. So my son and I worked 3 years and completely restored it. And he takes it to automobile shows, and a senior judge looked at it, and he said, you need to take it to a big auto show, but I have not seen a car that was restored to original condition done any better than that. My son takes it to a lot of auto shows, and I have my wife's, her original car, 1965 Chevrolet, that I still have, and it's in bad shape. And that's the next project that I have. I'm going to see if I can't restore it to original condition. In fact, I lost my wife a few months ago after 55 years. She unfortunately had Parkinson's disease. But I'd like to restore her automobile to original condition. One of the things that really impressed me, it wasn't really an engineer or something that I had done, but my brother contacted leukemia, and they decided that they'd like to give him stem cells to see if they could cure him, because the chemotherapy had not done that. And it turned out that they have to find somebody that's a donor for stem cells, and they test, there's 5 things that they've got to match, and they can give you stem cells if you get 3 that match. And when they tested me, they found out that all 5 matched. So then I realized I was going to be a donor, and it scared me to death, because I didn't have an idea what they were going to do. So what I did, I got a book about how they tortured the soldiers in North Korea, and I said, when I went to the hospital to donate stem cells, I said, these people are not trying to hurt me, so I'll try to do the best I can. but it's no problem, because they gave me shots for a week, and I generate a lot of stem cells, and then they put me on a machine for 5 hours, and they said my blood went through that machine about 4 times, and they collected stem cells, and they collected probably a liter of them, and they gave my brother, they killed all of his cells, and then they were going to give him this, and my brother never complained, and it was almost Christmas time, and when they got ready to give it to him, I said, your Christmas present may come a little early, and the package may not look too good, but I hope it's something you can enjoy for many years. And tears comes in his eyes whenever that happened. But they gave him the stem cells and completely cured him of leukemia, and they said that he'd never be bothered with leukemia again. And that's one of the most impressive things that I have ever seen. Some of the things that I saw during my career is I got to go see a lot of launches. When we did those 3 studies, we felt quite sure that our study wouldn't win, because JSC has a lot more influence, being from Texas and extra congressman and all. So we felt like that ours wouldn't win, and so we did all of presented our findings, and the 3 were turned in. So we went back to work, because we knew that ours probably wouldn't win. And a month or so later, they called us to go back over there, and they said that our proposal won. That's what the next space station was going to look like. And earlier, after about 3 weeks, the headquarters said that the avionics system that Marshall was proposing was going to be used, whichever one of the 3 concepts that was going to be used. And that made me feel really good that they decided that that's what it was going to be. After I got finished, I started walking to the back of the room, and I'd sweated underneath the armpits, and like I say, I felt like a whipped dog. And then the center director and the chief engineer and other engineers were standing along the wall. I didn't know they were even there. I said, boy, that was a rough one, wasn't it? And the center director said, Jerry, you represented the center very well. NASA and Marshall is fortunate to have you in the position that you're in. And I felt like you're riding on an airplane in a bad storm, and you break out into the sunshine. And I didn't mind going up there after that.